My name is Igal, and you're watching Small Business Big Leaders.
Join us as we find, follow, and feature courageous, committed, and culture-oriented business leaders on Small Business Big Leaders.
On this episode of Small Business Big Leaders, we're highlighting Andy Cruz and his business 9010 brand. Welcome to Small Business Big Leaders, and with me today I have a great businessman, also a friend from back in high school, Andy Cruz. Thank you so much for being on Small Business Big Leaders. So tell me about 9010 brands.
So 9010 brand is actually a concept that kind of got formulated out of people's needs. So we cover everything from design through delivery and every step in between when it comes to apparel branding. Some people need only one part of it, some people need the whole thing. And so we have built ourselves in a way that we can serve individual needs or we can serve the whole product line.
Hey, and before we were talking off camera, you said that you started this kind of as like a hobby, 2011, and then you went full-time in 2014.
Yeah, so the business incorporated in 2011, and it was kind of a side thing. I've been in finance for a number of years until that point, and still did that, but I was trying to feel out and figure out what could this be, and also had a lot to learn. And so it wasn't until 2014 that I made the complete shift and started doing this 100% of the time.
Nice, man. So you've been in business full-time since 2014.
Yeah.
And how's it going so far?
You know, it's like anything that you put your all into. It has its ups and it has its downs, and then it has its seasons of great excitement and its seasons of frustration. And you go, what is happening? And so we had a lot of that early because we had early success, and the early success came because of a very notable client who was in the public eye, who was who is a sports athlete, and it was required of us to do exceptional right out the gate. And so it grabbed a lot of attention, but then with that extreme scale caused problems that don't happen until you are there. And then you have to then adjust, modify, and adapt to that. And so it's going in the direction we want it to because it is agency specific, and also because we're still sticking to the niche that we're familiar with, which is the apparel branding part.
And I think you said something incredible. You had success out of the gate, and then something's happened where you had to adjust
And adapt.
and adapt.
Yeah.
And I think that happens in every business.
It can,
Right?
not, well, yeah.
In a lot of them.
Yeah.
It happened in my business, right? So
Yeah.
what did you do to adjust and adapt so that you have the success and the stability that you have today?
Well, so what ended up happening unconsciously is like what's going on? Like you had to become aware of what is actually happening. Like look at facts as facts. It's easy to get like drawn to the light and drawn to the magnitude of what you're doing. And I'm easily excitable by those things. And so I had to actually take a step back and go, all right, yes, this person is a really well-known sports superstar, but the facts are this, 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 and this. And so we had to kind of like drill down to what the facts were and then address those things. So whether it was increasing staff time, increasing standards, increasing systems, or increasing methods in which we did things, they still had to be addressed. And so the scale forced the hand to do those things, which then ultimately we allowed us to build on and grow the company as a result of that.
Nice. So you had to kind of measure exactly where you were, what wasn't working right, what
Yep.
was working well, and then go from there.
Yeah, and you learn and you learn really where you're exceptional at, because it's easy to believe that you're exceptional at A or B, and then you actually find out when your feet are on the fire. Like, oh, we're exceptional at this part, we stink at this part. And then where you stink at that part, you find someone who's exceptional at that to fill that place. And that's what we had to do.
Nice. You kind of like niche down to exactly what you were really good at, so that business would be profitable, successful.
Yeah, because the business itself has what it's good at, but then the people within the business have what they're good at. So it's kind of like a two-tiered thing, in my opinion. You have the business is good at this thing for the public, and then each people in the business is good at this part to support that structure. Yeah. And so we had to then move people in certain cases. You know, we've had one of our employees started out in one department, and we're like, this isn't the best fit for him. And so we moved him to a more creative role that is now flourishing for him. And so it was just a simple identification of what the mismatch was, and then it went and off into a direction that now carries more trajectory than I even knew it could.
So as a business leader, you have to kind of you have to stop, and you have to see, okay, this guy is a great guy. I want him to work here, but he's not in the right position.
Right.
I need to put him into this position and see what happens. So that segues great into leadership, right? Because you were able to say, don't just do your work. You know, you have to do your work or your job, but it's more like, wait a second, what's the best place for you?
Well, so yeah, and it uncovers a lot of other things that go along with that. Part of that is not only employee satisfaction, and feeling fulfilled at work, but doing good work at a high standard. And then if you fail to do that, you're going to deal with attrition. And so you're going to end up having people who are unsatisfied at your business that are going to look for work elsewhere because they want to go be satisfied and compensated. It's not just compensation. And so part of that is listening to, okay, what are the things you're dealing with day in, day out that you are frustrated by and you're encouraged by, and then my decision is, okay, how do I connect you to things that you're encouraged by more than frustrated by?
Love it.
Yeah.
We walked in here and smiles, laughter, good time, people cracking jokes. You know, you have how many employees?
6.
6 employees.
Yeah, 6 including myself.
Yeah, so it's a smaller company, but it's still a great culture. Like you walk in here and you really feel that people love what they're doing, love being here, because you guys are making jokes back and forth, but cracking jokes while you guys are working.
Yeah.
It's still productive.
Yeah, it kind of has to be that way because there's personal character and personality inside of every business. And when you are doing creative work, if you strip that out, you're actually diminishing the ability to have capacity for growth, scale, and creative output. And so I want everyone to be themselves. I need to be myself here too. And also we spend a lot of time with each other. And not only because our hours determine that, but when we're working on projects, the client's here multiple times to get their project going. It's not like they're here for an hour once and then in 6 months later, everything's out, they're selling $1 million of apparel and everyone's happy. Like there's consistent work and it requires focus and dedication, but there has to be comfort here. Because if we're uncomfortable here, it minimizes and it restricts what people feel they're allowed to do. And what we need them to do is to get creative to do that thing that the client really needs.
Can you elaborate a little bit on tips to make people comfortable yet productive?
That's a very deep question because there's a lot of different things. There's technical answers and there's psychological and behavioral answers. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Whatever you'd like to talk about it. Yeah.
So I think in our situation, I can speak to what I know works here. So every week we have a team meeting on Monday and we kind of set forward what needs to be done for the week. So what are our must-dos? How we do that looks a lot of different ways. Why we do it is always the same. We always have the same why. We want to help people. We want to help meet people at the intersection where passion meets purpose, and so that's where where passion and purpose intersect is where we want to be at with our brands. And so how we do that is we have a team meeting every Monday, and it's my job as the leader to not only coordinate what we're going to talk about, but to cast vision. So I think first part is you have to cast vision, but then have accountability attached to that. So we do have things that are due by a certain date or due to a certain person or someone has ownership over something. And so we talk a lot about working with purpose, being intentional, taking ownership of your responsibility, even things as simple as being kind to our clients, listening well. And every week we have an element of our team meeting which is dedicated towards personal growth. The only way the business can scale with people working at it is if the people scale. And so, although the creativity is fostered by the environment is also a benefactor of the creativity. It kind of goes together. Some days are better than others. You know, some days, I'll have a rough day, or someone here has a rough day, and you know what? Maybe they're just not on their A game. That's okay. Because we'll find out where are we at, what are the facts, and then how do we catch up to where we're supposed to be, and then you make room for that.
And you touched on personal development, right? Making sure that you've got your team meeting, exactly, you cast your vision, and then you sprinkle a little bit of the personal development into that. How does that work here at 9010 Brand?
Well, it's ultimately up to each individual how far they're going to carry what they're learning, and what they've been taught or been invited to participate in, right? So it's up to the individual to decide how far they're going to go down that path. but it's my job to create the opportunity, the invitation, and to welcome them to the table and say, hey, we're going to talk about this today. I'm going to share this story, this parable, this idea, and share your reaction. People can share or not share. That's on them. But we have to at least create an environment where you can do that, so that they have the option to opt in to the growth.
Nice. Love it. So before we were talking about that you have 3 daughters.
Yes.
And I want to segue into, I have a 2-year-old, one, she's a handful, you have 3. How do you keep that balance? And some people don't believe in balance, right? But how do you make sure that they're getting enough time and your business gets enough time so you're leading both family and work?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a question that there are probably hundreds of different answers and different perspectives on. And it's also the thing that I probably struggle with the most, or not struggle with, wrestle with the most, because it's, the life requires this over here, business requires this over here. Life benefits when business is doing good, business benefits when life's doing good. It's hard sometimes to even just separate those as a leader, especially when you are an active husband, active father, and an active leader in a business where your participation and presence are a part of the culture. So that's where you're part of the culture at home, you're part of the culture at work. So this idea of balance, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. There's no perfect balance, and unfortunately, people I've seen that have tried to strive for perfect balance, once they achieve it, now that purpose is gone.
Yeah.
So now what? And then on the other side, there's seasons. There's seasons where this place at work requires more of me than others, and there's seasons in life where life requires more than and work's just going to have to deal with it. And it's not because you can cast the business aside, but there are sometimes serious situations in life that require your participation, that require your presence and your attention. And there are times in my life where I've been home, but I wasn't present. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
And there's times when I'm here at work, but I'm not present. Yeah. And so what I've really been working on in my own development is be present where I'm at. So that even gets down to the nitty-gritty of my wife and I, texting or talking during the day. Can this wait till later? Can we talk about this later? Is it actually something we need to talk about now, or is this something we can talk about when the kids go to bed, so that we know what the relative prioritization of that is? So it's a daily thing. So for people that are watching this and you're struggling with it, or you're wrestling with it too, it honestly is a daily thing. What I would recommend is, if you are married, sit down with your spouse and figure out what are the things that absolutely we need to meet in our house. Yeah. Certain cutoff time, certain hours that are acceptable to respond to situations or not. What's an emergency? What is not an emergency? So those things are important. Something else I learned that has really helped me in both situations, work and at home, is this question: what is it that you're getting that you don't want, and what do you want that you're not getting?
Nice. Say that one more time.
So these are great questions for spouses to talk about, especially when you're an entrepreneur and when you're married and you're trying to grow a business and you're trying to grow a family. Is what is it that you're getting that you don't want? Criticism, heat, crap, flack, whatever you call it. What are you getting that you don't want?
Too many flowers.
That's right. Yeah. And what do you want that you're not getting? And that conversation creates the discussion that needs to then pour into how you create that rhythm, if you will. It's less about balance for me and more about that rhythm of how do you do both so that they both work and that you're putting your best in both places.
So when you ask that question to your wife, let's say, or she asks it of you, I think the goal is to be as honest and clear as possible.
Well, yeah, unless you're trying to end your marriage, you have to be.
Yeah. It's not holding back.
Yeah, the point is to address it right, or address it face to face, toe to toe. Here's our problem. Here's what it is, and this is happening. I don't like it. This is not happening. I want it, and then that's what you have to then go figure out, and you move those into position and you build around it.
I'm going to take that and ask my wife today, and see what she says.
Yeah, you might want to think about that first. Yeah. So here's the thing. Those of you who want to ask your wife this question, be ready for the answer. You can ask any question you want, as long as you're okay with the answer that you're going to get.
Yeah, as long as you're okay with not being judged.
Yeah,
right?
and you might be judged.
Yeah.
And that happens, especially if you're spending a lot of time at work and your wife feels that you're not spending enough time at home.
Yeah.
That can happen because the father you ought to be may not be the father you're being. Okay, and that's important because it's very. I have many other business professionals I know that have successful companies, but at one point poured too much into the company. I know that's a relative argument. What's too much for pouring your business? Like the Gary Vee model, hustle all day long every day. Okay, so let's park that for a second. But they did that, and then there was nothing left for anybody else.
Yeah.
So there was nothing left to be a husband. They were too exhausted to be an effective father, and they were tired, angry, cranky, and then disconnected. Well, that doesn't service the family. That doesn't serve the family at all, actually.
You know, my father at the age of 58 was diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia. Very successful businessman, made money, and now he spends it all on doctors, therapists, caregivers.
Right.
And as kids, you know, a lot of the clients that I coach, they say, "Well, I'm doing it for my family." Well, today I would give all the money back and just say, "I want you healthy."
Right.
So how do you see that with your 3 daughters and your wife playing out in the future?
They care more about husband and dad being there than the checking account being full.
Yeah.
And it's because when I'm at the beach with my family on Saturday, we could be absolutely dead broke and spend time together. You could be a gajillionaire and spend time together.
Yeah.
So the money part, like honestly, it matters to meet certain life needs. But beyond that, what my family cares about is spending time together. I can't, let's say we're sitting here and I've got $1 billion in a bag. I can't go buy back time to make my oldest daughter, who's 12, 2.
Yeah.
So while she's 2, I'm gonna spend time with her at 2, and then at 3, and then at 4, and then at 5, and so on. And now that my daughter's making that transition from elementary to junior high, now I'm looking at the other end of the spectrum. Oh, I've got 6 years left. Not I've got, I'm only 3 years in. I'm like, oh, I've only got 6 years left.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking about that relationship completely differently because of that.
And because of your presence at home, and sometimes, you talked about the rhythm, how important are those relationships to you now? How do they respond to you because you have been present and you have been there?
Well, the observation and the experience is that the family is more connected when we're together, spending time together regularly, consistently, and expectantly. And I say the word expectantly because if the expectation is that we're going to have dinner together every night of the week, and that expectation is missed, then it's missed.
Yeah.
So the relationships bond tighter when there's consistency in it, and when there's inconsistency, I have to identify, is that seasonal or is it systemic? And those are the 2 questions I ask. Is it seasonal or systemic? Is it tied to circumstances I'm dealing with now, or is it a problem in our day in, day out operations or process or culture that is causing this to come down on me where I'm now not present at home?
Yeah. Love it, man. So you promised me that you'd tell me what not to do with daughters, right?
Yeah, but we don't have much time. I've done so many things.
We'll get that afterward. But I also want to talk about like your community service. The people that come on the show, for me, the requirements are great business leader, great family man, and somebody who gives back to the community. So I'd like to give you the opportunity just to kind of, talk about what you do, so that if someone's interested in reaching out to help out in any way, they can do that. So if you want to.
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is our own personal homeless outreach. In December 2014, we decided we wanted our daughters to wake up on Christmas and give and serve.
Wow.
And so it was just an idea at the time. And then we went downtown and we saw individuals, we saw married couples, we saw families, we saw kids, our own kids' age, on the street, and we're literally handing them water and like granola bars, and we had like clothes in the car that we were just giving out to people who it fit. And like that was how that's how those people spent Christmas that year. And my wife and I and my parents we all looked at each other and said, we have to do this. Like, this is not only gratifying, but there's need here in our community, and we're capable of serving that need. And so every quarter since then, we've done homeless outreach out of our house, where we have donations come in for the couple weeks prior, and then we have a Friday night packing night. We pack hygiene kits, we have water donated, and we have men's and women's kids' clothes, and then we have a packing and sorting night, and then we load up all the trucks on Friday night, and we go downtown on the next day, Saturday morning, and we distribute to our homeless neighbors on the street.
That's beautiful, and I just did that about a month ago for the first time ever. Packed the hygiene kits, packed a bunch of them, went out we got a van and made lunches, and there's sincere gratitude.
Yes.
Like, thank you so much that you gave me some shampoo,
Yeah.
a sandwich, a water bottle when it's
Yeah.
really, really hot. So
Yeah.
and I think you're teaching your daughters, like you said, on Christmas, kids are so used to receiving, they wake up
Right.
to receive, and yet you're teaching your kids, yes, we could receive, but let's give.
Yeah, I
first.
mean, there's an entire world outside the walls you're sitting in, right? Outside the walls we're sitting in right now, outside the walls you sit at your house, and it's important for our family for my wife and I, to communicate to our girls this attitude of serving and serving others, and also even with that, the homeless is kind of a touchy subject even here in San Diego,
Yeah.
because and it's very easy for a lot of people to say, oh well, you're enabling these people. That's also commonly said by people who've never done what we're doing. Yeah. And when you actually go talk to people on the street and you hear what their needs are, and many people have told me they're in transition, or they just came here, they're looking for work and they're on their way, and I have never seen these people again. Yeah. There are very few individuals that I see time after time after time. And that's usually when they actually have some sort of life need greater than I can provide them. Yeah. They need mental services help, they actually need physical, medical help, and they need like life restoration beyond what we're helping on the street. And us helping them, us giving something to them isn't enabling them to be on the street. They have to get to and from appointments, and they have to get to and from the help they need, and they gotta be healthy on the way, or as healthy as they can be on the way.
So do you believe that giving is a strong suit of a leader? That it's important for someone who's a leader to be able to give back to their community, to whatever they choose to give back to?
I do, because I'm sitting here listening to your question, and I'm thinking, is it possible to be called a leader without that? And then I'd have to say no. And are people in positions of leadership by title or by authority or position on an org chart? Yeah, sure. But are people following you and participating because of what you're leading them in? Maybe not. It could be attached to a paycheck, an expectation, a role, or a job role, or something like that. And that's not the case at all when it comes to doing homeless outreach. People are doing this on their own time, on their own free will. I have no expectations. I'm not controlling anybody. They're not clocking in, clocking out. They're just participating because we're leading down that road.
Awesome. So compassion, I think, is super important.
Yeah.
In leadership.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, look, if you're not going to care for people, then you're going to have a turnstile at your front door.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have people angry. And the reason why I do the work that I do is because if you create leaders, then their families, the people around them, they're just better off.
Yeah.
I can't imagine coming to work every day, 8 hours a day with a boss who's, just not a nice person.
Yeah.
You take that back home.
Sure.
You take that back home and fight with your wife, fight with your kids. You're angry, you're stressed, anxious.
Mm-hmm. And that breeds animosity.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of sowing seeds of discontent.
Yeah.
And so if the workplace is a place that allows seeds of discontent to be sown, then that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to come up out of the ground.
Yeah. Andy, the last question for you.
Sure.
Before I give you the opportunity to tell them where they can find you.
Sure.
Is who is a leader in your life and why?
Oh man, the one.
You can choose one or two, just one leader who stands out, and why that person.
Oh man,
And what
okay.
about that person?
All right, so there's a lot more behind this, but my answer in short is going to be a gentleman by the name of Chad Robichaud. Chad Robichaud leads an organization called the Mighty Oaks Foundation. It's a veterans organization, an organization set up to serve veterans and help them basically redeploy to civilian life from service life. And Chad is not only a mixed martial arts champion, he's got a doctorate degree, he has a master's in Christian counseling, and he also has walked the path of many other veterans and service members who have seen combat time and have come home and had a destructive life, then changed to a constructive life. And so I look up to him for that, because not only has he overcome that, but he's sharing that with everybody. And so he and his group are actively pursuing veterans who are in need and are hurting, to help provide them with the resources and help they need to help combat PTSD or reframe what that is, and then also to help prevent the suicide rate from increasing and help restore marriages where they've been lost or they need to be reconstructed. And so I gain a lot from that personally and also professionally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now tell everybody where they can find you.
All right, so the first place you can find us is 9010brand.com. That's 9010brand.com, or most likely on Instagram. We're on Instagram all the time. So you can find us on Instagram, same handle, 9010brand.
Andy Cruz, it's
You
been
go.
a pleasure and honor.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching Small Business Big Leaders, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching Small Business Big Leaders. If you know a great business leader, go to smallbusinessbigleaders.com to nominate them for a show. Thanks.